not to the hard-working people of New Zealand.
David Bennett.
Mr Speaker, I think the Labor Party needs to take stock of that member, and I think that having an experienced member sitting beside him like Mr Cunliffe that had a high ranking within the Labor Party until recent times should really talk to that member, because the comments he is making around roads of national significance, the comments he is making will come back to bite him if he ever had to do any policy, because the member cannot say that billions of dollars are being spent on empty roads. That member obviously has never been in Auckland. He is from out of Auckland and is making policy and judgments around some of our busiest roads, and he has no idea what he's talking about, and he deliberately misled this House talking about how this Parliament and how they were saying that all this money was going onto roads of national significance. That's not true. The fact is that we pay for half of the roads that are local roads. When they are talking about relieving peak congestion, and my colleague made a very good point about trains and buses and that, the member has no idea opposite about the way that public transport works and how much it costs and the effectiveness of it at certain periods of time. And he finished with the quote of going to your local communities. In my first reading speech, I made it clear to Mr Ian Lees-Galloway, we welcome his visit to Hamilton. We welcome him to Hamilton, and I want to see the day that Mr Ian Lees-Galloway says the words like that these are monster motorways that serve no real purpose. I want to see him come to Hamilton and say that to his former member, Mr Gallagher, to our mayor, to our people. I want to see Mr Ian Lees-Galloway repeat the rhetoric that he's been saying in this House, because those words will come back to haunt him, because the people of Hamilton and Waikato and Northland and Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch and Tauranga know that these roads are important for their communities. They make a big difference to economic growth. They make a huge difference to those communities. And I want to see that member come and say what he's been saying outside this House, because he is going to be the biggest vote winner National can get, and he is going to be the biggest vote loser that Labor can get at the next election. So thank you, Mr Ian Lees-Galloway, and just a bit of advice, don't make such statements about roading in the future. Think about what you're saying, because it is going to hurt you in the end. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Very compassionate.
Grant Robertson.
David Bennett's very conscious of words, the importance of words that people might say and how they'll come back to haunt him. But there was one word he didn't want to utter, and there were two words: tax and petrol tax, because that's actually what this bill is about. I said it was two. I did correct myself. Two words. Thank goodness the Minister of Education's here to keep us on track. We'll come to the contingencies, but the words that Mr Bennett doesn't want to say are petrol tax and raising petrol tax. He didn't mention that once, Mr Speaker, and that is exactly what this bill does. But I'm not surprised that he didn't mention it, because he wouldn't want to get offside with his leader, John Key, who of course also doesn't want to mention that what this bill does is put up petrol taxes to ensure that the National Party can create its wafer-thin surplus. Because the whole notion of what was going to happen with taxation under this government is something that John Key doesn't want to talk about. But in 2005, this is what he said. He was talking about taxation, and he said, what we have to avoid is the indifference to the burden that taxation heaps on middle-income families. Well, what does this do? What does this legislation do, Mr Speaker? What this legislation does is exactly